I'm trying to separate myself from Isabel while I'm at work to be okay, and this is just bringing it all back.
A little bit to you. Ease it in a little bit,
well,
right?
it's so good to be back.
We brought
and
you a
Geraldo,
present, Geraldo.
I missed you too.
Congratulations. I missed you too.
And you have an Isabella.
I have an Isabella. How do they turn
mine's
out? 25. She's great. She did get to work at CNN, though, so I don't know. I failed somewhere along the line.
Geraldo, it's great to see you.
Thank you, Abby.
I've watched
Delightful
you
to see you.
The last 4 months, you always do a fantastic job. But
sweet.
let's get to the news of the day. The omnibus bill. The president threatened to veto that bill that came on his desk yesterday, tweeting out about that. Reports that he had lunch with General Mattis, who said this is too important for our military. We need this spending to continue on. Obviously, we know the president cares so much about our troops and our military. He ended up signing this bill. What's your reaction?
Well, my reaction is it was a mediocre chapter in the president's tenure. It was a bill that exactly the kind of thing that he campaigned against. It seems to, water the swamp rather than drain it. Dick Cheney said famously that Ronald Reagan proved that deficits don't matter. So if deficits don't matter, then I guess there's plenty of money to go around for everybody's project, everybody's pet project. Seems to me that Chuck Schumer got a lot of what he wanted.
A lot of people are fired up. A lot of people are angry. A lot of the president's base talking about the spending, saying he's not fighting for the things that he campaigned for. But the president seemed very conflicted yesterday in making that decision.
Well, it's, for him to pledge, for example, that I'll never, ever do this again. I'll never, ever sign an omnibus bill like this again. Let's see what happens next year. I don't think there's any faith in that kind of pledge. It just seems to me that Washington, the monster, the deep state is so powerful. When he was threatening to veto, what I hear is that every lobbyist in Washington was calling their designated legislator and saying, is this true? Is this really going to happen? Is he going to veto it? Am I going to get screwed out of my, my money
project
for my apricots or whatever it is?
Well, Geraldo, the president spoke about just that yesterday when he announced he would sign the bill. Listen to what he said.
As a matter of national security, I've signed this omnibus budget bill. There are a lot of things that I'm unhappy about in this bill. There are a lot of things that we shouldn't have had in this bill, but we were, in a sense, forced. If we want to build our military, we were forced to have. There are some things that we should have in the bill. But I say to Congress, I will never sign another bill like this again. I'm not going to do it again. The Democrats fought us. They just fought every single inch of the way. They did not want DACA in this bill. But I do want the Hispanic community to know and DACA recipients to know that Republicans are much more on your side than the Democrats, who are using you for their own purposes.
So he pointed out in his tweet as well, no DACA funding, also very limited on the wall. He points to his support for the military as the reason to sign it. Get us inside his calculation on whether to sign or veto that.
Well, I think that on DACA specifically, Pete, the president and I had a conversation about that at dinner at Mar-a-Lago. And what I was urging him to do is make it simple. Okay, you mentioned the 1.5 million dreamers getting some kind of path to citizenship or at least to normalization of their status, and then, on the other hand, getting $25 billion for the wall. I said, that's a great deal. You have Gutierrez, one of the most radical left-wing congressmen. He's in favor of the $25 billion if the Dreamers get the pass. Schumer said he would do it, a bunch of them. Keep it simple. What happened is both sides then, because they perceived that immigration will be the most volatile issue again in the midterm elections, it seemed to me that both sides decided, screw the Dreamers, screw the wall, we're going to fight this out. This is one way the Republicans see that they can mobilize their base. The Democrats see they can mobilize their base.
But the president is willing. Don't the Democrats hate the wall more than they love the Dreamers?
Yeah, I think that I love the president. But to say the president is willing and the Democrats are not, I think, is a very parochial, one-sided view of it. I think they.
How many of them have said they would actually build the wall? Honestly, and the president said, I will give you DACA. So I don't feel like.
But what happened is then he threw in chain migration. Then he threw in a reduction in legal immigration. Then he threw in the Republicans, the right, threw in other issues. The Democrats then said, instead of 1.5 million, what about their parents? What about their grandparents? What about their nannies? It didn't seem to me that there was sincere commitment to affect in a positive way these kids' lives, and I
the
deplore
ultimate
it.
swamp at play, right?
I totally believe
throw
that,
whatever you want in
Abby.
there.
It was just as swampy as the omnibus bill is swampy.
Speaking
just
of the
business
swamp,
as usual.
big picture, Democrats, it seems to me that as they've been fighting the president and attacking him on almost every issue, they're not focused on the actual issues and coming up with their own agenda. And instead, you get comments like this where Joe Biden sort of challenges the president to this schoolyard fight in the high school locker room. And now he, of course, is backpedaling.
Shouldn't have said what I said. I shouldn't have brought it up again because I don't want to get down in the mosh pit with this guy. I did say, I used again, in high school.
Right.
I never, ever at any time said I would like to personally, physically, etc.
You know, Pete made a good point earlier in the show, and he was saying it seemed like Biden, with the initial comment about the fight, was trying to get street cred with the left. They want to resist President Trump. So he's like, I'm going to fight him. I'll take out the knife. I'll punch him. I'll do this.
First of all, that's a crime.
Yeah, well, it's a crime. He realizes now his credibility should be that he's a statesman. He's a retired vice president. What went wrong here?
These two alpacacas, it's ridiculous. It was funny. Howard Stern once instigated a fight between me and Sly Stallone's brother Frank, and I think that Howard Stern should promote the fight between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden is going to win the pre-fight trash talk, and the president would kick his butt. I think it is probably as you suggest that he's trying to get street cred. But, he's, he's 75 now, 76 now. If he ran, he'd be the oldest candidate, since Moses. I think like Hillary Clinton, I think that the former vice president should go quietly into the sunset.
Do you really think he will? Because he's atop a lot of these pre-polls. A lot of people think he could tap into middle America because he speaks that sort of folksy language. I mean, are they really going to go there potentially again?
Well, I'll tell you this about Joe Biden, and I feel and I relate to him as an almost 75-year-old man myself. It's not how you feel, it's how you look, and he looks okay. But when you come to running for office, it's how you it's whether you have the stamina to do it. The president, and I spoke to the president about this also, has amazing energy for a 71-year-old guy who's 240 pounds and, not in the greatest shape, but he bounded on the stage just like he did in Pennsylvania. Remember Western Pennsylvania a couple of weeks ago? That energy standing up there speaking extemporaneously. He's got, and he killed Hillary Clinton's candidacy with his physical exuberance. Joe Biden doesn't show that now, and imagine a couple of years from now, it really, you can deny Father Time for a time, but then inevitably it takes.
But speaking of fake fights, what about this real fight? I mean, you had this terror incident basically with ISIS in France.
Horrible.
We had this officer step up and pay the ultimate sacrifice.
It's an incredible story of heroism. You have this officer swapping himself with this hostage. Now, unfortunately, the sad news that he has died from those injuries. Geraldo, I mean, you hear these stories, so inspiring. I mean, you wonder what was going through his mind in that moment to get that motivation to say, I'm going to be in your spot, and I'm probably going to die because of it.
I am in awe of this man.
Yeah.
His name is Arnaud Beltran. He's a 45-year-old deputy commander of their the gendarmerie, their military police. And when he swapped himself out for the female hostage, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes. An Iraq War veteran, also, you should know. When he did that, for this scum now had a ranking military officer. He was the first one who got shot. He left the colonel left his cell phone there, so his colleagues outside could know if the negotiations went to hell in a handbasket. As soon as they heard the shot, they stormed in. By then, it was too late. He was already mortally wounded. But imagine giving up yourself that way, giving up yourself to free one of the female hostages. It just is the most noble act. You were early, and I was very delighted to see how you were honoring our own veterans who fell when the chopper was shot down or crashed. The French, since World War II, have had kind of a lame reputation when it comes to their military prowess. But they have some tough as nails officers and soldiers. And to see this nobility, this was beau geste. This was something incredible and deeply touching, and I would love the president to reach out to President Macron and tell him how much the American people appreciate this kind of nobility, this kind of courage.
That's the ultimate
It really
heroism.
was so touching. In a cynical world, to see this kind of sincerity and absolute heroism and courage is so deeply
in
affecting.
that moment, make that decision.
Make that decision.
He wasn't prepared for that when he woke up in the morning.
Right.
He finds himself there and he makes that call. It speaks to his ultimate
And he probably
character.
didn't even think twice. He was like, I'm doing this.
If he
I'm gonna
did,
save that
and that
person.
second thought, he said, I got to do this. And that's
even
special kind of person.
that's even the special kind of courage. You're absolutely right, Major. That's
Geraldo,
exactly
thanks
it.
for reminding us and highlighting that
Appreciate
man.
it.
Incredible
Welcome
story.
back in.
Thanks. Good to see you. All right, I do want to bring you some quick headlines this morning. Demonstrators in Sacramento showing no signs of calming down during a